that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell. Tom is not here today, and instead I have the famous Sascha Deri, who is the CEO and a co-founder,
Co-founder
of altE Stores, and we should altE store
singular.
Yeah. Is this is it a web store, a mail order?
We were started out initially as an e-commerce store in '99, and we've since grown to be a wholesale company and a retail company. We sell all over the country and all over the world to do-it-yourselfers, installing solar on their homes, RVs, etc.
There you go. Okay, well, every day I get up early. Today it was about 4:15, which is a little late for me, and I look at the news and see what I can get in terms of headlines relating to energy. There's been a lot going on this week because of the Paris talks, and I keep them at my blog, which is geoharvey.wordpress.com, and if you want to look them up, you can find them there. And I put together a list, and Tom and I usually, but today it'll be Sascha and me together. We'll go through the list of the 20 or so ones that we like the best of the last week. And actually, I started this list a week ago yesterday because last week was Thanksgiving, so we couldn't record on Thursday. So that having been said, we will start straight into it. Our first item is this thing. Let's see, I can't see the mouse. I can't.
The rocket stove.
Gonna have to. That's right. That's what it is.
Rocket stove, yeah.
The famous rocket stove. There we go. Okay. U.S.-based EnviroFit is one of the first social enterprises to provide clean cook stoves, and it's just recently sold its millionth unit. Rocket stoves are wonders of sustainability. They address dangers of human health and posed by open fire cooking. It's amazing how many people cook indoors with their windows closed sometimes and an open fire. They also burn very small amounts of wood fuel and have low emissions. And this is a really kind of an amazing thing. The rocket stove is in the middle of the picture there. It has a big pot on top of it. It's not very big. It's a very powerful cooking stove. It uses very little fuel because it focuses the fire on the pot. This is new technology. This is not even 25 years old since the invention of this thing. It could have been built out of ceramic any time in in ancient times, but it's new technology and it's exquisitely simple. And by the way, there is no U.S. distributor.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually I was looking on their website. The rocket stoves are really neat. I've seen them, I've seen sort of homemade jobs on YouTube.
Yep.
And it is sort of remarkable how little, just a few sticks, and you can get away with cooking a lot very efficiently.
Yes.
And I think the same company, when I was looking through their website, they seem to have even larger stoves for schools or more of industrial settings to efficiently heat and cook with.
And this kind of stove can be used as the core of a thing called a rocket mass heater, where the rocket stove is inside an inverted drum. And air comes in under the drum, it goes through the rocket stove in a path, and then it comes down the sides of the drum and goes out through a second path. The two things of air don't mix. And as it goes out, it goes through a ton or two of cob. So that absorbs the heat.
It's like a thermal mass.
It's a huge thermal mass, and you have a situation where you'll have 1,000 degrees Celsius in the stove, firebox, and 40 degrees Celsius coming out.
Oh, by the time it exits.
Yeah, which means you've got almost 100% of the energy of the fuel in that thermal mass. The only problem with it is you have to be a person who can having a ton or two of mud in his living room.
Oh, for that thermal mass. Yeah.
There are other ways to do it, but anyway, we should probably move on here. The next item, that item, by the way, came from Clean Technica. The next item is also from Clean Technica. An accelerated transition to renewable energy could limit the global temperature rise to below 2 degrees Celsius, says the International Renewable Energy Agency. It says if renewable energy accounted for 36% of the world mix by 2030, half the emission reductions needed to limit the warming to 2 degrees would already be met.
Yeah, it's that still, do we wait and wait, or can we do something now?
Oh, let's wait and wait and wait. And see if it's kind of like sitting on a train track, you know, and saying, oh, it'll stop.
Yeah, eventually. Well, it's just momentum. It's just thermal momentum.
It's thermal momentum. It takes a long time to heat up a planet. And if we stopped emitting carbon now,
it's going to take a long time to slow it down.
It's going to take a long time to slow it down. Things will continue to get worse for at least 20 years, according to the scientists that I have seen or read talking about it. Now, our next item, and this I'm sure is dear to your heart, is this German house. This is from Thursday, November 26th, and it comes from Deutsche Welle. German household scale battery maker Sonnenbatterie will soon provide buyers of the company's household scale electric storage batteries, most of whom have solar photovoltaic panels mounted on their rooftops, as you see here, to automatically buy and sell energy from each other directly through a shared online platform.
I love that. I think I looked hard at that article, and I thought it was really interesting because it provides a sort of a framework in which we could potentially do things in this country. And I think the future is in sort of micro storage or community storage and microgrids.
Absolutely.
And so I thought that was intriguing. I'd love to see, and I understand that you can sell back to the grid in effect at one rate, but you can also then, if you buy from fellow producers who also have that same battery system, you actually get a lower rate per kilowatt hour than you would have to pay from the utility. So there's actually a double incentive, you know, to contribute during off-peak hours, and then when you need to buy, if you buy it from your people within that power generation community, it was actually a lower price. Sounds like a fabulous idea. Now, I think their cost per kilowatt hour was in the 20, maybe 20, whatever the
very high
0.2 something euros per kilowatt hour or something like that. So I'm not sure how much that is.
It's a high price in Germany. Yeah. But the interesting thing is, since the Energiewende really kicked in, the price of electricity has gone up at the retail level, but it's gone down at the wholesale level. The difference being taxes.
Huh.
Yeah. Huh. So don't let anybody kid you about that one. Okay, our next item is from Free Malaysia Today. This year will be the hottest year on record, and 2016 could be even hotter due to El Nino weather pattern, the World Meteorological Organization said. WMO Director General, and I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce his name, rejected climate skeptics' arguments, saying it's not about believing it or not, it's a matter of seeing the facts. The facts are there. And I don't know where that picture is. I think it's probably Malaysia. I don't know what they're trying to grow in that field.
Could it be rice?
I suppose it could be. And as a matter of fact, it might be that was flooded and just recently got dried out a little bit. But, you know, the question we've got is, how long is this going to last? How long is the crop going to last? How long is the drought going to last? How long is El Nino going to last?
Yeah. Did you see it was a computer drawing, I think from satellite, from NASA, of the El Nino was like I think it was the late 90s, almost exactly the same dates as we are here, and the El Nino this year as it stretches out, and it looks very almost like a mirror image, except for the one this year for exactly the same date. You see this red blob go across sort of almost the equator of the Earth, and the red blob is even larger, sort of indicating even increased temperatures than before.
Well, we have increased problems from that, and you know, this is what we have to take care of. But Going on to the next item, this is from Clean Technica. One significant challenge to the lithium-ion EV battery technology is coming from lithium sulfur field. A lithium sulfur battery research project at Oak Ridge National Laboratory has had sufficient success that Oak Ridge announced that it has signed an exclusive lithium sulfur battery agreement with a startup called Solid Power. And there are significant advantages to these lithium sulfur batteries.
It was higher power density, and
higher power density,
cost?
lower. Well, I don't know about lower cost. The cost in the lithium ion battery is the lithium.
Yeah. So presumably lithium with the sulfur.
Yeah,
would be higher.
The lithium, at least that's my understanding. That's the reason, also, by the way, that they're looking into the sodium ion batteries and the Aqueon battery, which is a salt-based, sodium-based.
Saltwater, non-toxic battery.
There's, you know, I could quote Tom Fennell and just say there's a lot of people out there looking at a lot of different ways, and some of them, you know, we've got a lot of different solutions, a lot of solutions.
I can say from our company standpoint, over the years you hear fantastic things on the news media about these, you know, new solar panels are going to be wonderfully efficient, lower cost, and they never seem to come to fruition. And I worry sometimes the same thing will happen with batteries. There'll be a lot of talk, and there'll be expectations, and people think, well, I'll wait 5 years, or I'll wait 2 years, and this fancy technology will come out. And I think the reality is that you have to balance sort of the desires and the wish for a fantastical future and a solution, technological solution, to what's real and available now. And you know, that particular lithium sulfur batteries looks fantastic, but I imagine they're not going to be really able to come to market for a number of years at best. And that's assuming they can make it to market and the production costs make it worthwhile and competitive to other lithium batteries.
Right.
But meanwhile, we do have, you know, there are technologies, say like the saltwater batteries, which are, you know, non-toxic, can last longer than traditional batteries. And I think it's worth considering what can you get today that's environmentally responsible, lower cost, and probably going to be dropping faster in cost than, for instance,
well, the
Aqueon
battery, of course, is an example.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's more expensive than a lead acid battery.
Initially.
But it also can be discharged 100%, and the lead acid battery can't.
That's true. You would kill a lead acid battery, discharge it 100%, and then on top of that, per cycle. So with a typical lead acid battery, you maybe could cycle it between, well, basically for maybe 5 years or maybe up to 8 years if you treat your batteries really well, you baby them. And usually the warranties are between 3 and 5 years. There's right. some exceptions to that. Meanwhile, the saltwater batteries, their Aqueon is warranting them for like 7 years, I believe, 7.5 years.
But you should, I think it's 10,000 discharges?
And 10,000 discharges, which is like, how many years is that? That's like
that's a lot of years.
That's a whole lot of years. Yeah.
But the one thing about the Aqueon batteries, as I understand it, is that you should buy extra batteries because they discharge slowly.
Yes, they're current limited. So yeah. They have kind of like the same sort of connectors that solar panels have it on, these MC4 connectors are called. And they're limited to, you know, each stack. They look like a square stack of batteries. They have these little connectors, just like solar panels, and you can connect one up to the other, and they're 48 volts per stack. But they are limited to about, I'm going from the top of my head, but it's somewhere between 10 and 15 amps per stack. Not amp hours, but, you know, amps. Current draw.
Right.
And I guess you can surge it for a period of time.
Yeah.
But it draws.
The thing about batteries is that nobody should buy batteries for himself without doing a lot of research.
True.
Because there are many solutions. I mean, the iron Edison battery, the nickel iron battery is a really good example of a battery that's very different.
Yeah, those things will last a lifetime. I mean, you buy your house, it'll last as long as you'll probably be in that house. As long as you remember to water them, and that's the key. Yeah. You have to water them.
But you can, a lot of these batteries, and the Aqueon is one of them, can be abused. The nickel iron batteries can be abused. You abuse a lead acid battery, and it's
your investment
Your investment goes out the window. You could destroy the battery in a month.
Yeah. Well, the saltwater battery too. The great thing is it is really hard to destroy them, and you don't have to put pure water. You don't have to water them every month like you do with normal batteries or with iron nickel.
Okay. Our next item is from Vermont, and this is from the Boston Globe. Vermont Yankee nuclear plant stopped producing power last year, but security measures, including heavily armed guards with bulletproof towers, will remain in place for decades to protect hundreds of tons of radioactive waste. The spent fuel will stay there until the federal government can determine where to store it. And I'm not sure the federal government will ever determine where to store it. Nevertheless, those are the dry casks, and they are huge.
So I'm not a big proponent of nuclear energy, but we do have a lot of waste. But I know, for instance, Bill Gates is he's venture funding a number of companies, and there's one company that he's funding that's looking to recycle that waste and reuse it to produce power more safely.
You know, we have, and anybody out there can look in that and go to bctv.org. It's brattleboro.tv.org, and if you do a search on Energy Week and Reucroft, R-E-U-C-R-O-F-T, you'll find that we did 2 shows, and honestly, I think the first one was better, about energy amplifiers, which would use that waste up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it will take the long-term isotopes and convert them into short-term with practically no long-term isotopes. And they say that the waste from these things would be as radioactive as coal ash in 300 years.
Really?
Because there's no long-term isotopes. And you're getting the power out of them that you didn't get out of the original fuel, which means you're getting about 50 times as much power as the plant has already produced. Yeah. And the projected cost of this for a plant at Vermont Yankee would be almost exactly $1 per dollar per watt.
Oh.
$650 million for a 650 megawatt plant.
Wow.
And this, the designs have been done. This was invented by a team at CERN that was put together by Carlo Rubbia, who won the Nobel Prize. You can go to our old show and look at it and see.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, the problem is we end up having to store it or stick in the sides of mountains, and
we don't have a good solution.
Cost.
We don't have. There are a number of things about nuclear power we don't have good solutions for. Yeah. And you know, one of the things that I tell people, there are people who say they're very safe. Yeah, 2.2% of them have melted down.
Yeah. This is Japanese and a few Russians.
Yeah, 500 plants, 11 meltdowns. Yeah. Okay. We should go on.
When was the last time a solar panel melted down and caused radioactive
waste?
Well,
you know, radioactive, I don't know, but you know, they melt down every once in a while. But
yeah,
usually,
good house fire.
No, that's not a good thing. But nevertheless, you know, the people talk about the mind-boggling complaints. They have rare earth elements in them. Right. And how much of this do they have? Do they have as much cadmium, for example, as there is on a household plated screw? You know, really. I mean, let's get real about this. Okay, our next item comes from CBC.ca, which is Enbridge says it has purchased a 103 megawatt solar farm that is under development. There it is. In West Virginia, that's not the farm in West Virginia, this is a farm in Canada, I believe. For about $200 million from EverPower Wind Holdings, the Calgary-based pipeline operator, which has been increasing its stake in the clean energy sector, said it's aiming to have its new Wind Creek project in operation by December of 2016. And one of the things that I think is really amazing about these things is how fast they go up. They just
pop up.
They pop up. Once they've got the approvals, they pop up. And it will take, you know, a year year and a half, there was an offshore wind project, which of course is much more complicated, off the coast of Wales. And they had something like 400 turbines to put in, and they were putting them in at a rate of 1 a day.
Wow.
You know.
Wow. That's a lot of power really fast.
It's a lot of power really fast, and it astonishes me every time I think of the fact that the British are putting $40 billion into 2 nuclear reactors in Somerset, and then guaranteeing the price of electricity at double the normal rate for the next 35 years.
Yep.
Very, very strange.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This article that I'm sure you talked about, the one in Texas that,
yes.
that you told me about, the incredible circumstance where
Roscoe.
Texas overproduced power to the extent
yes.
that they actually had to give you money to take their electricity.
Well, they weren't giving people money.
The wholesalers, the wholesale
wholesalers
market.
were, the retailers were giving people electricity for free.
Yeah.
Because from the wind farms, nobody wanted it at night, so the wholesale price of power went below zero very often. It goes below zero regularly in parts of the Midwest, and so it just makes sense to have people sign up for wind power the way that in Vermont, we sign up for cow power and just have the power. They have the power come in for free between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m.
Fantastic. I mean, it's a great example of why you would want to have battery storage. You could store that free electricity at night when there's an excess of it, or a lower price if the market serves that way, and then put it back out on the grid or use it yourself during higher peak times.
Right, and there's no risk in that, because if the batteries get low, you just switch to grid power, pay an extra premium, but there it is. Okay, the next item is from PV Magazine. In a report, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory says in just 4 years, thanks to falling renewable energy technology costs, economic potential has more than tripled. Economic potential is a metric that quantifies the amount of economically viable renewable generation that's available at a specific location. This is from PV Magazine. This is just a continuation of a long story that's been going on and on and on. Prices keep going down, and that's just the way it is.
Yep.
But our next item, rising levels of carbon dioxide in the oceans, and this is a serious problem, are changing the makeup of plankton. While the shift in numbers could certainly be fortunate for animals that eat one type of a burgeoning population, researchers are unsure exactly which animals those are. And this is worrisome because so little is known about these ecosystems. Now, this is a picture of plankton, and the specific plankton they're talking about in this article is called a coccolithophore. And I'm
glad you could pronounce that. I had a hard time.
The little guy who is kind of in the middle of the picture toward the bottom, that's really small and kind of hard to see because it's light colored, I think that may be a coccolithophore. The rest of those are not coccolithophores. These things are small enough that it would be very, very difficult to see one. You could get one in a microscope. I would think that it might look like just a fleck of dust, or smaller without a microscope. I'm not even sure that it would be possible to see without a microscope. But nevertheless, when you look at these things from space, that's
an incredible plume. That's a country-sized plume, right?
That's a country-sized plume. We have these things almost every year somewhere on the planet, but that is a plume of coccolithophores. And nobody knows who eats those guys. But
I wonder if we could. New food.
Well, actually this morning,
like plankton or something like that.
On the way in here, I got an odwalla. I go into a local place and say, I want a green odwalla.
Yeah.
And it's cyanobacteria, which is a blue-green algae, they also call it. Yeah. And these are even smaller than coccolithophores.
Oh. Wow. See, so maybe we could see in the future odwallas.
Yeah,
drinks,
we could.
Right?
It's possible. We just don't know.
It's the new cocoa drink from
the new cocoa drink. Absolutely. There you go. And anyway, that is from Science Recorder. So I think we should keep going on this because we don't have all day. Oh, come on. I've got the wrong mouse. Here we go. For more than 3 decades, people from the Marshall Islands have moved in the thousands to landlocked Ozark Mountains for a better education, jobs, and health care, thanks to an agreement that lets them live and work in the United States. The connection makes an obvious destination for those facing a new threat, which is global warming. This is, by the way, from Fox News. And the problem with global warming is their islands are disappearing. Yeah. And, you know, when I think about that, and I think about the right-wing politicians who were so patriotic, I wonder how, I don't remember, I think it was 6,000 American casualties wresting the Marshall Islands from the Japanese. There were over 2,000 Americans killed there. And with climate change, they're
being wiped off.
Being wiped off the map. They've been buying land in other higher islands in the South Pacific too. And you know, this is a difficult thing for these people.
And this is how it begins.
Yeah, this is how it begins.
Bangladesh, highly populated, is probably going to be one of the first countries to be really. It was already being severely affected. I actually remember talking to customers in Alaska where people build their homes on top of the permafrost. And I remember back in...
Oh, we've had pictures of those.
Yeah, I remember back in 2007 or 8. Yeah, whole houses are shifting, moving because the permafrost, which never went away, perma.
Yeah.
Now the
going
homes are
away.
And this was, you know, this was almost 10 years ago. Yeah. When we were talking to customers, like, yeah, it's affecting my house, it's real, it's happening now. So we talk about the effects. Some of them are very visible, some are very subtle. It's that.
And there are certain organizations which would like us to ignore all of this and say that it isn't real, including presidential campaigns.
Yes.
Oh, well, okay, we're up to Sunday, November 29th. California is the birthplace of a machine that could power, and here we go, I've done it again. California is the birthplace of a machine that could bring power to a developing world and knock a tiny dent in global warming, and it looks, the place that as you come to it looks like a junkyard. But the power pallet, which generates electricity from corn cobs, wood chips, coconut shells, and other kinds of cheap, dense biomass, is, according to these people, carbon negative, by which they mean it absorbs more carbon, the life cycle of this thing, than it produces. And this is from the San Francisco Chronicle. I find it really hard to believe that that thing is carbon negative, but nevertheless.
It's hard to understand, and you know, it makes sense from the same standpoint as a wood stove, right? A wood stove is at least carbon neutral as long as your source of wood or burning material is sustainably grown.
Right.
Right. So if it's coconuts, you can imagine that. But you can also imagine, we go back to the first story you had today on the rocket stoves.
Yes. A
big incentive for that was for people to not use the larger stoves that were more polluting, but also would cause people to chop down woods and trees, and which cause environmental issues and let alone economic issues. Right. So you wonder, something like that, it's fantastic, but only if the fuel is being sustainably produced.
This is a piece of machinery in which they do gasification. The wood, the fuel.
So like pellet stoves kind of do that.
Well, no, the pellet stove is a little different. In a pellet stove, you have a direct combustion of the product. But in this thing, you gasify the product, and then what you burn is the gas, which could actually be stored cold if you wanted to.
Oh, really? Huh.
So this is a process that is very, very clean. Right. And it can be arguably cleaner than natural gas, because natural gas has got a small amount of radium in it, other things of that nature. This is a very clean product, but we'll see how that goes.
There's radium in natural gas?
Yeah.
Wow. Did not know
At least there is when it comes out of the ground. Of course, if it's going to be in a pipeline for a long time, by the time it gets to your home, it's going to be it won't be there, because the half-life of radium is very short. Okay. And that's part of the problem, is that you inhale radium, which you could get in your basement in a lot of places, and it can decompose in your lungs. And that particular nuclear decomposition is not especially dangerous, but what it does is it becomes radium. As I recall, it's radium, which can be an alpha emitter, and you don't want an alpha emitter in your lungs. It's not bad if it's outside, because it won't penetrate your skin. So the americium that's in your smoke detector is probably not going to cause trouble.
But once it's inside you internally.
Once it's inside you, it is bad news. Yeah. So our next item, let's see, I should check that and make sure that I gave proper credit. That was the San Francisco Chronicle. New offshore wind turbines are coming to market. Senvion's 3.4 M140 is a 3.4 megawatt example with 140 meter rotor blades. Oh my gosh. The turbine should be able to generate 12.2 gigawatts gigawatt hours of electricity annually in locations with wind velocities of 6.5 meters per second at the hub height, making a capacity factor of 41% for wind power. And what that means is wind power is getting more and more efficient. And this is an onshore wind turbine. And you know, if you put this into places, there are places where wind is already operating at 50% capacity factor. You put this much more efficient wind turbine in a place like that, and we're getting capacity factors that are, well, they certainly beat peaking plants.
That's true. That's true.
And peaking plants are very often run by natural gas. So that was from www.renewablesinternational.net. By the way.
I saw a study from an organization called Lazard. I don't know if you
Lazard.
saw Lazard. Okay.
Yes,
did you
Lazard
see that?
Frères. Oh, they come up with stuff all the time.
Yeah. Did you see the interesting study where they showed? And maybe I saw this from your newsletter, perhaps.
Yeah.
The one where they talked about how if you remove subsidies from solar or renewables in general, but you also remove the subsidies, which are millions or factors larger for coal, natural gas, et cetera. If you remove all those subsidies,
all the subsidies,
even residential solar can compete with natural gas and coal.
Yes.
If you remove those subsidies for everybody, you make it a fair, plain, open market game. And then if you do things like the commercial solar where it's, the economy of scale kicks in, you get even more competitive. And then wind was not by far, but it was the least expensive source of energy.
Wind is the least expensive source of energy in the United States.
In the large scale.
Yeah, I've seen wind PPAs, power purchase agreements for wind, come in at 1.5 cents per kilowatt hour, which is just mind-boggling. And you compare that with nuclear, for example. Nuclear is 8-9 times that.
And then you have that mild leftover issue.
Well, when a wind turbine has to be decontaminated and so
and it doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. Okay, our next item is from Monday, November 30th. Leaders from 147 nations. I'll put this up on the screen for you so you can see it. Are addressing COP21 on its opening day. Negotiators from 195 countries will try to reach a deal during the 2-week conference aimed at reducing global carbon emissions. Initiatives to boost clean technologies are due to be launched, but the world's poorest countries say they are being left behind. And that is a picture of the Eiffel Tower with the COP21 color display being done, lit up Sunday evening to support the conference. The conference actually started with negotiations going on kind of formally on Sunday, but it was Monday, which was the 30th of November, that things formally started up, and the big guns got there and gave their powerful lectures. And
what an interesting contrast, though, right? And something so horrible happened in Paris just shortly before this, and then something that's so horribly affecting the whole planet, which is being addressed in the same city at the same time.
I did a calculation about that very matter, and it was at the time that I was putting this thing up, and I looked up that terrorist attack. 137 people were killed in that attack. And the attack lasted 218 minutes. And I thought to myself, I wonder how many people were killed by outdoor air pollution during those 218 minutes. So I took the World Health Organization's numbers, which was that 27 million people are killed by by air pollution every year. About half of those are a little more outdoors. So I just said, okay, let's call it 3.65 million people killed annually by outdoor air pollution. That comes to 10,000 people a day, and in the 218 minutes, 1,368 people would have been killed worldwide.
During the same period of time?
During the same period of time. 10 times as many people as during an ongoing terrorist attack, and people don't notice.
There's something about the human mind where there's the intensity of an event is what contributes more to an outrage.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Versus if something's low intensity but constant,
yeah,
we are not outraged. You know?
Yeah, somebody you love dies of emphysema or other outdoor air pollution deaths. Could be circulatory, heart attack, other circulatory problems, other respiratory problems, a whole slew of different kinds of cancer. And you don't sit there and say, well, you know, my spouse died of lung cancer, but, you know, and he never smoked, but, you know, that's just the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
And
that was a statistic.
That's a statistic. Yes, that's right. And you know, the connection of going from there to the fossil fuel industry is not being made. And we could lay this whole thing at the foot of the fossil fuel industry. But the fact of the matter is, anybody who's burning fossil fuels for any purpose, including heating a home, driving a car, manufacturing chemicals, whatever it is,
we all contribute.
We all contribute, some of us more than others.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the proper thing to do, I think, is to reduce your load to the lowest possible amount. And
voice your opinion with politicians. Call them up.
Absolutely.
They do listen.
Absolutely. Yes, they listen. That's true, or at least some of them.
Some of them listen.
I'm not sure that.
But it's interesting that, again, you know, something bad happens to a group of people that we care about, and it sparks incredible diversion of monies to solve that. You know, we decide, okay, great, we need to go bomb ISIS in Syria.
Yeah.
And probably millions and millions of dollars will be put into that per day. Whereas, you know, the global climate problem, which is going to affect billions of people, we will unlikely change the amount that we'll put into that anytime soon. There will be no great surge of monies put into trying to resolve a problem for the human race. And so, I mean, that's again where we get back to the politicians. We need to remind them that we care about that.
Well, and that's true that's true of many different issues.
Yeah.
Many different issues. Okay, Colorado Public Radio tells us that climate change is taking a stage, well, Monday they told us, takes stage center, sorry for the way I'm talking, Monday as a global conversation begins in Paris. But it's not just international politicians who will lead discussions. U.S. cities like Boulder will have representatives to share their best practices. Now the city's strategy includes a job many have never heard of, Chief Resilience Officer. Boulder has a Chief Resilience Officer. And it's not the only one to do that.
Huh.
But
what does that person do?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things about resilience. What does resilience mean?
Resilience for the city?
For the city and the city's inhabitants.
To be able to rebound from whatever
happens.
Confront.
And you know, we've had NASA, for example, say, well, guys, we were just 2 days away from being slammed by a solar ejection, which would have taken down the U.S. grid for 3.5 years. Having the grid down for 3.5 years is bad for business.
Unless you're off grid.
And within a week of that, before or after, I don't remember which, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission announced that it had figured out that if terrorists attacked simultaneously 7 different targets in the United States.
The whole network would have gone down, right?
And one factory, 7 different network targets in one factory. The whole network would be down for about a year or a year and a half. And I just recently read that security has not been beefed up on those targets in the year since that was announced. And you know, it makes you wonder, what do these people have on their minds? Yep. You know, I mean, people like Republicans running for office, they're saying, don't worry about energy. It's not a problem. Don't worry about it. It is a problem, but you know the way you get it is by drilling for more oil or digging more coal. And they're living in a situation where if you want to have electric power and you know you have electric power, be grid tied, but make your own power and store your own power.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's the DARPA rising of the electric grid. I mean, DARPA created, essentially invented the internet or the World Wide Web as a robust network of interconnected, in this case,
and
processors.
It's amazingly robust.
To communicate. You can take out any computer router and it'll reroute automatically. What we have for electrical grid is like the old communist system of, centralized power.
That's right.
Virtually
and that's what they want. This is really, it's a very good point. This is what they want. They want something that emulates the old Soviet system.
Yeah,
we don't. This right-wing politics, that's what they want.
And we're about independence. I mean, we're about freedom.
No. They don't want democracy. They want something else. They want, and they've even said so. Yeah. Which organization is it? They've got these organizations that are like cells all over the place. But it was Freedom Partners. Said they were going to.
It's funny how the word freedom is always used to mean the opposite.
Oh yes, it's like the Soviets. They had pravda, which means truth.
Oh really? And it was usually lies.
It's usually lies. Well, this is Freedom Partners, and it's not about freedom. They're putting $895 million into knowledge, into propaganda leading up to the next presidential and congressional campaigns, so their guys will control the White House, the Senate, and the House. Yeah. All right, let's put this a slightly different way. Hello, everybody. We want to take over the country.
Yeah. Well, it's about power. It's about control. And you see that in the corporate world outside of utility companies, but if you have a lot of money, a lot of revenue, a lot of control, losing that, you're not going to go down without a fight. But the people can choose to take freedom and liberty in their own hands and become independent. And the truth is, as long as they don't outlaw, which I hope to God they won't, that they won't outlaw off-grid systems or grid-tie systems or people having solar, or we don't see more things like it happens in Arizona where
they wanted to have $100 a month connect fee.
They charge you for the liberty of giving them clean energy.
Yes.
Then I think that we can, we as everybody in the United States can choose to make a difference by putting solar in our own houses and distributing the power out. So if God forbid, like it's a terrorist act, or more likely something like a large hurricane comes through and tears up our network, we still have a very resilient network that won't collapse just because one section of the network went down. But
and as a matter of fact, if you think about it, and this is kind of a vision that I've had. You take Vermont as an example. Well, that's where we are right at the moment. If every community, if every neighborhood had its own microgrid that was capable of supporting itself with its own energy resources, which would probably be solar in most cases, that would mean that if the entire grid went down, if those microgrids were capable of connecting to each other, the whole thing could just keep going.
Yep. As though completely resilient.
Yeah. That's right. And what is the value of that? Well, in the case of a 3.5 year electric grid outage, that would make land prices in Vermont go through the roof.
We got power.
we got wind turbines. We can keep going. Okay. Our next item is from NJ.com, and let's see if I can get this going. There we go. Think of cities across the country where solar power is booming, and some obvious sunny spots come to mind. Las Vegas, Phoenix, Los Angeles, San Antonio. Here's another city that beats them all in energy production on a per capita basis. Now, what are those buildings you see in the background? Do you recognize any of those?
It looks suspiciously like downtown New York City.
It's the Chrysler building over there on the right.
Oh, I totally misidentified it. I thought this was New Jersey. And
this is the New York City skyline.
Oh, it is the New York City line. Okay.
Seen from Newark, New Jersey.
Nice.
Actually, it's not Newark, it's Kearney, but that's okay because Kearney and Newark are basically next to each other. Try sunny Newark, New Jersey, which ranks 8th in a survey of 65 large U.S. cities on a per capita basis. What do you think of that?
So what's the deal? What's the deal? If you were an alien that came to planet Earth, you would probably think that the best place to put solar panels, the humans most, if they're rational creatures, we'd probably put a whole lot of them more at the equator, land masses than we do in the northern climates. But we have countries like Germany whose latitude is higher than Maine. Is powered by more solar than any one state in the United States.
There is a misconception about the idea that you put solar power where the sun shines the longest. And the misconception is solar is so cheap, you can put it anywhere. The place you put it is where people need it.
But I think what you see is a little more, even more complex than that. So for some reason you have states like Florida, like Arizona, with beautiful sources for solar power, who are de-incentivizing solar, or doing the opposite.
Yeah, well, that's because the politicians are in the pay of the utilities that are using fossil fuels, and the fossil fuel. Actually, it isn't even fossil fuels. What they want to do is they want to work with a business model that says big business gets all the money.
Right, centralized, old Swiss school, old system. So
right.
Few people get the power, electrical and otherwise, and the rest of us just have to serve and pay.
Right. But I think that system is.
But I just find it bizarre, that if we can do this in Germany, we can do this in Vermont, we can do this in Canada, we can do this in Toronto, we can do it in Minnesota. Had just a very large installation.
They have big installations in Minnesota.
Yeah. I think Florida can do solar too.
Florida can do solar too. Yeah.
I think I've heard that North Carolina is just they had a really good incentive program for solar that they're shutting down after this year.
Yes, and they have had huge success with that.
And it's too bad. Why are they shutting it down?
But on the other hand, it's interestingly enough, if you look at the politics of the thing, the people who are really pushing solar in Florida right now, who have got ballot agenda items coming up. One of the groups that is really pushing hard on this is the Tea Party.
Oh, for the
right
independents.
Wing, because they want the independents.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons why I've been saying I believe that in the next election the Republican Party is going to split, and it's going to split between the Tea Party people who are not particularly happy about big business, and other people who are happy about big business. Yeah. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but the propagandists for the big business groups, when Debbie Dooley, who is one of the founders of the Atlanta Tea Party, went to Florida to try to push solar power in Florida, the people who were doing the propaganda for big business were saying that and I think this was the Heartland Institute, but I might be wrong, they were complaining that Florida had been infiltrated.
Oh dear.
Which makes the right-wing person think of socialists, but no, it was Tea Party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing like the fear factor.
Nothing like the fear factor. Where are we? We're up to Tuesday. We are in Tuesday. As COP21 kicked off in Paris on Monday, a key committee in San Diego pushed ahead with a blueprint for cutting greenhouse gas emissions in that city and powering the city through a green energy within 2 decades. Members of the City Council Environment Committee unanimously approved a proposed plan. This is from the San Diego Union Tribune. And what they're trying to do is get to 100% green power as fast as they possibly can. So our next item from newsok.com, okay, Oklahoma is okay. The Obama administration is boosting the amount of corn-based ethanol and other renewable fuels in the U.S. gasoline supply despite sustained opposition from an unusual alliance of oil companies, environmentalists, and some GOP presidential candidates. The EPA issued a final rule designed to increase the use of ethanol. And I'm not happy about this one.
I was born in Ohio, which is, gets a great amount of its revenue from corn and soy, and go back there every year to visit with family. And I see what important product it is for that state or those products. But let's call it for what it is. I mean, it takes something like what, 1.1 calorie of petroleum to get 1 calorie of ethanol out.
Ethanol, yes.
So,
and then when you use that ethanol in my Prius, my mileage went down 10% when I went to 10% ethanol.
So there's that. You know, so now it's effectively like 1.2.
So it's just whoa.
It becomes a shell game where you stuff the oil over here so you can have a green cover over the top of it.
It is. It is a shell game.
It's despicable because it's distracting our nation. I mean, and that those fields could be easily producing more food for
they
us
could be
as a human
producing
race,
switchgrass, which is a whole lot better if you
or
want
another
to
source of energy.
And you can get ethanol from that if you want, and it's cheaper in terms of the environmental effect, but it's also much kinder to the soil. It doesn't require all that fertilizer and insecticide and so forth that's used for. There are better ways of doing things, and there's just no doubt of it in my mind.
Yeah, it's a complete greenwashing of the policy.
It absolutely is.
It's sad. I'm disappointed that Obama would support that.
Well, and you know, nobody's perfect, and actually, I suppose nobody's imperfect to 100% either. But nevertheless, I was not thrilled with this particular item.
It's too bad.
Okay, we are.
He needs a few more scientists on his council.
SIFY. How would you pronounce that?
That's the Sci-Fi channel.
Is it?
That's how I call it. Yeah, I think that's what. Didn't they change the Sci-Fi channel to that?
I'm a
nerd, so I.
Okay, Sci-Fi news. The impacts of climate change on forests and agriculture were in the spotlight. I've lost my. There it is. We're in the spotlight on Tuesday at COP21 as alliances among organizations and stakeholders that were announced aiming at elimination of natural deforestation and forest degradation to prevent threats of sustainable farming and people's livelihoods. Now, that picture that you see, and I don't know exactly where that picture came from, but that could be anywhere in the Appalachians in the United States. I don't think it is, but that is a picture that, I mean, I've seen that in Massachusetts. And if you think for a moment that it's not going to come to Vermont, you should think again. And if you want to put your actions on, opposition to solar farms or wind plants or something like that to good use, redirect it so that we can stop this. And the way that we're probably best able to stop it is to put in solar farms and wind farms.
Yep.
This is I don't know what happened. Obviously there was forest cutting here.
Yeah.
But those tall standing dead trees were killed probably by insects. And I have pictures of forests, rolling hills, far as the eye can see, the hemlock trees are red. Far as the eye can see, almost every tree in sight is just a barkless trunk reaching up into the sky with limbs, and down below them you can see new growth coming in. But the new growth will be killed when it's 5 years old. It survives until it gets furrows in its bark. We've got serious problems, and people in this country are just not acknowledging them unless they see them full time. And
where was that forest you saw?
If you want to see something like that, you could do a Google search on images for Clingmans Dome, which is the highest mountain in the Great Smokies. And basically about half the trees up there they had clear cutting up there. And the rest of the trees, about half of them are dead, or more than half of them are dead. But there are a lot of pictures if you really want to go through it. I was preparing a slideshow, and I'm not done with it yet, but in Vermont, in most of New England, we have the woolly adelgids, which are of the hemlock woolly adelgid type, which has been killing. You've probably got them. You're in Boxborough, right?
Yeah, Massachusetts.
You probably have them near there where you have stands of dead trees. Drive along Route 3 and you'll see them. I drive along Route 2 and you'll see them. I used to live in near Plymouth, and I remember my daughter saying, "Why are those trees they look like they're sick?" And then the next year they were red. The year after that they had no leaves, and Now many of them still standing there, but they're just white trunks. They look like the mess that is left that's produced when beavers flood the land and kill all the trees.
So is it they got disease or because there was clear cutting around them?
No, it was because of the woolly adelgids. The hemlock woolly adelgids live on those trees, but they push poisons into the trees that prevent sap from flowing.
Oh no.
And that's the hemlock woolly adelgids killing the hemlocks, but there's also a balsam woolly adelgid, which is the one that's responsible for the mess at Clingmans Dome. So,
that's sad.
Yeah, it is. Our last item for today, I believe, is this next one, which is a little bit more lighthearted. And that is UK-based activist group Brandelism has peppered the streets of Paris with 600 fake outdoor ads meant to expose the hypocrisy of COP21 climate conference corporate sponsors. The fake, unauthorized outdoor ads were strategically placed around Paris this past weekend and were made to look nearly identical to the originals. This is from Gizmodo, Australia. And there you see a VW ad.
I think they get the greenwashing award of the year, and they got busted. That's hilarious.
Boy, did they ever get busted! And every time I see news about VW, it just looks worse. Yeah. These people the people at VW are in deep trouble. The stock has lost 1/3 of its value. I think it'll probably lose more. But here, we're sorry that we got caught. Which is,
and of course, the sad thing is that so many people who are environmentally minded bought the clean diesel machines,
the clean diesel, which
they're
turns
doing
out
something good. And I know many people like that, and only to find out that they spent a lot of money on something that was not so clean.
And it was emitting 40 times the amount of nitrogen oxides.
Whoopsie.
40 times, and the estimate that I saw was that killed probably almost 4,000 people in the United States. So should we try them for murder?
Well, the good news is that corporations are citizens, and so thanks to Citizens United, so maybe we should consider that.
Absolutely.
Execution,
Well, it's time to get to the end of our time. So Sascha Deri from altE Store and I will say thank you for joining us, and next week I expect Tom Fennell will be back. Maybe Sascha will come back.
I'll be happy to.
You're invited. Okay, see you later.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.
I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.